What is up, guys? Without a doubt, Daniel Dubois is going to wreck Fabio Wardley. And I'm going to say it first, and I want to get this video out here. Daniel Dubois is absolutely going to destroy him, and here's why. So, basically, we have a all British heavyweight fight coming up between Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois. Both of these guys are very, very highly ranked in the division. As you can see, Wardley is ranked number 3, Dubois is number 4. Should Wardley even be ranked this high? Probably not, but he's gotten here, and with the he has wins to back it up. But it is the substance of these wins that I'm going to get into, and I am going to explain why Dubois is going to 100% wreck him. Now, a lot of people see this fight, and a lot of people think that Dubois is going to get chinned, he's going to get hurt, he's going to give up, and I'm going to explain why that's not the case. Now, first off, I think a lot of people are very quickly forgetting that the tear that Dubois was on before getting beaten by Usyk of all people. Um, Now, first, I just want to get into it. So, as we can see, if we just kind of go quick little glimpse over Dubois' career, typical British contender, up and coming contender run here. He loses the fight to Joe Joyce, but this is the same this is the same Joe Joyce that knocked out Joseph Parker. And it was a while ago, and Dubois was still very young. I'm not going to hold that loss against him too much. Nonetheless, it was a loss he took though. He fights Usyk the first time, gets outboxed the whole fight, gets stopped in the ninth round. There was the controversial low blow. I personally think the shot was a little low. I think it was a fair, call by the ref. And either way, Usyk was, outboxed in the whole rest of the fight. And then, after that loss, it reignited something in him, because he goes on this very good streak. He becomes the first person to beat and stop Jarrell Miller, who was pretty by this point was pretty notorious and famous for his durability. And the boy stops in the 10th round. Then he beats he beats Philip Higrovic. I always forget how to pronounce his last name. Philip Higrovic. He stops him in a pretty good fight, and he took a lot of punishment in this fight. He showed that he was a sturdy, durable guy in this fight. And he takes a lot of punishment, and he rallies and he stops him in the 8th round with cuts. So that was a very good win. Two undefeated guys, two undefeated, highly ranked guys, mind you. Becomes the first person to beat both of these guys, and then this was his main breakout performance. He does a demolition job against Anthony Joshua. Great performance, absolutely wrecks him. Um, you know, 5th round knockout, and on the way there, he was just dominating the whole fight. And then he fights Usyk again, and Usyk honestly dominates him this whole fight. It wasn't even really competitive at any point. Usyk was schooling him the whole time, and ends the fight in the 5th round. And Dubois is going to bounce back with a fight against Wardley. And this is the thing I respect against Dubois is, he's not ducking anybody. He's constantly just taking these top level fights. And that's why he's ranked so highly. So, you got to respect it. But then, we touched on Fabio Wardley. Now, Wardley, mind you, he has some good wins here. So, going through his career, nothing crazy. Only notable opponent here I see is Eric Molina because he's fought for the title a couple times. Um, so, he fights Nathan Gorman here, and then David Adelaide, whatever. But he stops him. So that's a pretty decent win. And then he has this war of Fraser Clark, and Fraser Clark, mind you, he's been on a little bit of a decline since those fights. I mean, they did a rematch. Wardley destroyed him in a single round. He gets takes a bounce back fight. Then he loses two close fights to two contenders. Um, so he's on a little bit of a decline here, unfortunately. Um, but he's fighting Justin Hooney, or sorry, Justice Hooney. Justice Huni, who's a pretty good boxer. He's a good boxer, and he takes him to a majority decision in his last fight. So this guy is his record and his rankings a little deceptive. He's actually quite a good boxer. So there's no shame in take going to a draw with him, but obviously at this point that's a blip on the record because Clark bombs him out, or sorry, Wardley bombs him out in the next fight. And then he fights Hooney, who we just seen fought Clark, and Justice Hooney was absolutely outboxing Wardley. I mean, if you watch that fight, I mean, Hooney was really putting a whooping on him. But Wardley actually came back and he scored a knockout blow in the 10th round. One of the best knockouts of 2025 without question. He takes his fight with Joseph Parker. Obviously, his best fight, his most highly ranked fight yet. And Parker was winning this fight. Parker was definitely up on the scorecards, and he gets a pretty controversial stoppage against him. I honestly don't think the fight should have been stopped. So that's kind of where some questions come in. Because Parker was definitely outboxing him, and Parker's definitely a high level heavyweight boxer. But basically, all these fights, you could kind of point to a little bit of luck that Wardley was having. Especially his last two fights, he was losing both these fights, and he just gets he gets a stoppage, which is fair enough to him. The Hooney knockout was legit. He was losing, but he gets a legit knockout. But the Parker stoppage, you just got to kind of go watch it for yourself. I mean, it was a little controversial. In the stoppage, there was, Wardley didn't land any blows when the fight was stopped. It was pretty controversial. And I personally don't think it should have been stopped. I think the fight should have went on. And it looks like Parker was kind of on his way to a majority decision had he, gone the distance. So, it's kind of a iffy. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Was it a fully legitimate win? And of course, it was in the O2 Arena. Wardley's British, so it was kind of controversial. Everyone kind of knows the politics, going on there. And now he's fighting Dubois. And personally, I think his undefeated, run here is going to come to an end against Dubois. I mean, Dubois is durable. I mean, I know his 3 losses are all by stoppage, but it's not like he was, completely knocked out cold in any of those stoppages. He just he got hurt, got knocked down. I mean, even the Joe Joyce didn't even knock him down. I mean, he just kind of took a knee willingly in that fight because his eye was swelled up. And then against Usyk both times, he got knocked down with a blow, but it kind of almost seemed like he could get up, but he just was too hurt too. But he wasn't knocked out cold. And we've seen against Joshua and Higrovic that Dubois does have a good chin. So the question is, I do think Dubois is capable of taking Wardley's power. And Dubois is just a better boxer. I mean, I think he's gonna come in, he's gonna rough him up, he's gonna be strong, he's gonna land a lot of blows. Neither one of these guys' defense is all too great, if we're being honest. But I think Dubois is gonna, he's gonna be more powerful. He's gonna land a harder shots. He's slightly better at evading, shots and stuff. So I think he's really just gonna wreck Wardley. I think it's gonna be the end of his undefeated run. And yeah, I definitely think that Wardley's just not going to be able to handle Dubois' pressure. It's going to be similar to the Hooney fight, but except Dubois, I think, is just going to be a little bit more powerful than Hooney is, and he's gonna get to Wardley a lot quicker. I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say a 3rd round stoppage for Dubois. I'm gonna say he's gonna come out. He's gonna have a great performance. He's gonna bounce back from the Usyk loss, and I just don't think Wardley's gonna have the ability to keep Dubois off of him. And that's really it for the video. Let me know what you guys think. If you think I'm wrong, let me know. But as always, thanks for watching, guys. And I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.